and we'll be live in just a second. Click the button. Excellent, and we're live. Hello, everybody, and happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, right? I'm pretty sure it's Tuesday. My name is Jen Baldwin. I'm the Data Acquisition Manager for Find My Past in North America, and we are so excited for today's session. This is going to be absolutely fabulous. We're glad to have you all with us. We are excited for today's session. This is going to be absolutely fascinating. All right, all sorts of things to set up. So as per usual, if you're watching from home, please let us know where you're at and who you are. We'd love to talk to you and engage with you. From our house to yours, this is a really, really fantastic day. So we've already got Tess from Rotterdam. Ivy is saying hello. Rosie is with us. Thank you so much for being with us again, Rosie. It's always good to see you. Tina is with us from Centennial, Colorado, not too far from where I'm at, actually. And as all of you can see, we have a couple of very special guests on today's call. So I'm really, really excited to introduce our special guests. We're going to start with them, and then we'll get into today's topic, which is actually brick wall busting. So we're really excited. So I'm going to ask Donna and Thomas, go ahead and turn on your microphones, guys, so that we can chat. And we'll start with Donna, actually. Donna Jones is coming to us from South Carolina this morning. And she actually was one of the people who submitted a research request. A couple weeks ago, you may remember that we put a call out on our Facebook page for your brick wall sessions, your brick wall story. And Donna's was absolutely intriguing. Now, a lot of them were, but Donna's caught our attention just because of the opportunity that we saw in the case that she presented. So Donna has been working on this story, I think she said around 30 years. Is that right, Donna?
That's right. 30 years. Started manually.
Yeah. And of course, our other guest, our second guest this morning is Thomas McKenzie, who many of you know. But we're very, very happy to have Thomas with us, a genealogy professional specializing in using technology and social media to improve research and to connect with the family history community. You can find many of his articles, cheat sheets, and videos for free, which we all love, at genealogybargains.com. Thomas, thank you so much for being with us.
This is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed, I have to say, I love all research, but this one was really kind of special. So, yeah.
I would agree. We also have, from the Find My Past team, Ellie is on Facebook with us in the comments. So please make sure you say hi to Ellie, everybody. Audrey Collins is with us. She says it's very nice to see you again, Thomas. All the way from
Audrey, yeah, for a while.
Yeah, right. Audrey's been great. And Lisa's with us from Southwest Cornwall. Linda's coming in from Illinois, so that should be a good one. She'll be nice to have on the chat. So as we get talking, everybody, make sure that you're, as always, commenting in the thread, asking questions, pointing out things that maybe we didn't see, right? This is all about the community coming together.
Correcting me in my research if I'm wrong, please.
Yeah. So the concept really is, how can we help Donna get past her brick wall? When we talk about brick walls, I think that a lot of us kind of automatically jump into asking a lot of questions and saying, oh, what can I find that she hasn't found? But sometimes it's really just about taking a step back and getting that second opinion, getting a different pair of eyes on the research. I know, especially after working on this, Donna, for so long, having just another pair of eyes come in and review what you've already done is sometimes the most beneficial thing. So we're gonna dig into Donna's story today, but we're gonna use the process of research to help introduce that and to help explore the research itself, right? So there's all sorts of angles we could take, but we're really gonna look at this from a methodology and a strategy perspective, right, Thomas?
Yeah, and also it's not a matter of just you take or someone else taking a second look. I think also what Donna's going to be able to do is use some of these new tools that I'm going to show. I mean, a lot has changed in 30 years. There's probably a lot more digitized that's online, both here and across the pond. But I think sometimes, you know, if I don't have someone to look a second set of eyes, then I think, okay, I've got to step back and I'm not getting the full view. And that's what we're going to focus on as well. We're going to start using mind maps to do that when we start out once we discuss the research problem.
Right. That's exciting. Have you ever used a mind map for your research, Donna?
Oh,
No.
Donna? Oh, okay, great.
Oh,
Yeah,
I have not.
okay.
I use them often. That's good. So Donna, why don't you tell us a little bit about the story that you sent in and get us started?
All right. Well, first of all, I grew up in the Cleveland area, and I live in actually North Carolina now, and I am so excited about this brick wall session and thrilled to have the opportunity. My second great grandparents were Michael Keenan and Mary Kenny, or perhaps Keeney. In Cleveland, we pronounced it Kenny. They were both born in Ireland, and where they were from in Ireland is my brick wall. I don't know if they were married in the US or Ireland, and I do know they were Roman Catholic. Thomas is going to go through all of the information that I submitted, but I do have one thing that I think is really promising, and that's some clues from DNA. 3 of my siblings and myself have tested, as well as 2 first cousins of my dad's. My dad's no longer with us, and we have additional ethnicity information that our Irish ancestors were from, or maybe from South Donegal. We have 6 large DNA matches varying from 107 centimorgans to 170 centimorgans. And all these matches have given me either given me information or have trees where the Kenny ancestors were from the civil parish of Killigate in the townland of Meenabrook. And I probably mispronounced that, but that's how I say it. I did receive information from 2 people almost a year later. So never give up hope. So far, I've not been able to find any matches with the Keenan surnames. And I've done a lot of Kenny research on these other matches. And I made a huge mistake. I started building trees for them manually. And I should have done private trees on Find My Past. So lessons learned. But here's some personal information. I was able to travel back to Cleveland 2 years ago and went to the Catholic cemetery in Cleveland where Michael and Mary are buried. And it's a huge cemetery. It's 300 acres. And I was absolutely shocked to find they were buried in the Potter's Field. This just had such a profound effect on me because it made me realize what a difficult life they had coming to the United States. And I thought that they had done okay because Michael had always worked for the railroad. And so it just really affected me. My dad told me that his grandmother, her name, we called her Mamie, had beautiful auburn hair. And she said that Mike did as well. Mamie said that Mike was 6 feet 3 inches tall. And she said that her mother Mary took the girls back to Ireland to visit family. And when she came home, she had 50 cents left. I haven't been able to find a passenger list to substantiate this. I feel that such a connection to them and would love to find out where they were from. Thank you, Thomas and Jen, for any help and suggestions.
Great, perfect. And I appreciate the additional information and the story. And so what I did is I took the text, and Jen, you can see this, everyone can see the research log, right? So I'm using a research log. It's a spreadsheet. It's set up in Google Sheets, and you can do this in Excel. So can you see it okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. And so it outlines everything that you had submitted. I think there's some important things here. This is right now, there's a spread of 10 years on the birth date. That's a big issue, even with the Irish. Just so you know, as an aside, Donna and I are both attending a Celtic Connections conference online. And we know that birthdays were not as important to the Irish, right? I think you got an idea of that. You know, they were never asked their age or their birth date until they came here. So it could be very well that we could see this wide fluctuation. The other concern is could we actually have 2 Michael Keenans in the Cleveland area or in Ohio. And we've got some overlapping information. So I also know that the first wife was Mary Keeney. I think that I've misspelled it down here and I'll correct it later. Then he remarried. He remarried in 1903. And also these children, Mary Marguerite, Rose Marion, Susan, an infant who died in infancy, and Anna, were from the first marriage to Mary. Is that correct, Donna?
That's correct.
Because in the I believe in the 1910 census, we'll see that Elizabeth and Michael, when they're married, they have all of her children with them and grandchildren, etc. So this is important. The 1880 census, we know the 1890 census doesn't exist. And then we have some indications on naturalization. This number 5 was really key, and I'm glad that you said this because I had the same suspicion that before arriving to the Cleveland area, that they lived somewhere else. And so the other thing is, were they from Ireland? And so also you added here railroad, et cetera, baptismal records, naturalization records. These are all the questions that I have. I think the first thing is, when I believe that brick walls really are sometimes our own construction. I tend to call them speed bumps, not brick walls. Okay. And the thing is, it can be from doing the same thing over and over again, or maybe not having done recent research for records. But I think in this case, I had trouble, Donna, sorting out all the information and visualizing it. And that's why we're going to go to a mind map. This is a mind map set up in Google Slides. You can do it in PowerPoint. This is very rudimentary, done with shapes. You know, I'm just saying insert shape, etc. So this is the first one. I'm going to say, will the real Michael Keenan please stand up? Because I really think that there might be two. We need to resolve this 10-year span. So these are the records that I've looked at, and probably, Donna, that you've looked at. These are the main ones. What I really want to stress, Donna, very often new researchers, and you're not a new researcher, you're like me, you put in the years, you're a hardcore, hard time person. But the thing is that they will immediately want to jump to the pond and look for the Irish stuff without exhausting the US records here. And I think you'll see, I think that I have at least 40 records that I found 6 hours yesterday, some of which you've already done and some which might be new. Okay, so this is what we're going to deal with. And the nice thing about this is, I just want to show you with a mind map, I tend to use things yellow because they're pending. I'm working on them. So if I wanted to, I could say complete, and then I could, yeah, you got to spell it right, Thomas. And then I could change the color. You know, it tends to be very color oriented, so I could make that green. See, it gives me a visual. I could put a done date. So it gives me a visual here. Even more visual. And Donna, you're going to be able to keep these. We're going to make sure that you have access to these so that you'll be able to get a start with these.
Oh,
This
fantastic.
Yeah, this one is really important. This is the real crux of the situation. Is we have this span, I put in 1847, it could be 1846. We have this span here that we have these census. Did you know that I found a Michael Keenan in the 1860 census, Donna? I don't know if you had.
Well, I knew there is a Michael Keenan and Patrick living together in Cleveland in the 1870 census. And
Okay.
I have no idea. I didn't know there was somebody in 1860.
Yeah, there is. There's someone in Cincinnati, and I think that he may have been in Cincinnati before he was. See, this is why you always, you know, so the one thing, this is also good for researchers that are working collaboratively, or let's say that you've inherited research from someone. It's one of my most popular lectures. You know, what do you do with inherited research? How do you incorporate it? So the thing is, this is also what professionals do, Donna. If you were to submit this case to a professional, they're going to go back and check your work. It's not an insult to you. So I don't take it as an insult. Don't take it as a deficiency or I didn't do it right. Because the thing is, what if I catch something? What if I don't catch something like this 1860 census, and then I proceed along my way? We could go on a wild goose chase. Okay. And again, we could wind up with the wrong passenger list and the wrong family in Ireland. So this is why we're going to exhaust this. The nice thing, again, I can color this around. I can color this. I can, the nice thing also, did you know that you can add comments which is really nice. So living in Cincinnati with Peter Keenan.
Oh,
He was a Cooper. I didn't spell it right either. Spelling is not my forte. Neither is math. So, okay. But this is what you can do with mind maps. Okay. The other thing is on this one. This is also what we have. This is the split of the census and the death certificate. These two support an existence possibly in Cincinnati. These four sort of lean more towards Cleveland. It doesn't mean that Michael didn't travel from Cincinnati to Cleveland. It could very well be. And so that's what we need to get down to. So there's several levels of this, but this is really nice. It's here in the in the drive. Also, we're going to work with a timeline program. So let me go to the research log, Don, and let me show you what I've done. Are you familiar with the research log that I use?
as a matter of fact, that's where I got my research log as
Very
well
good.
as my timeline
Very good. So what
from
I
that
did,
handout that you had.
thank you. So this is what it is I've created a synopsis tab here where this is the incoming information. Did you notice I have a to-do list here? And everything that's green has already been done. Anything that yellow is still pending. And this is a nice way for you to track information like this new one, prove residence from 1867 to 1870 in Cincinnati. Okay. And you can come over here and make notes. See, like this. His brother Peter disappears all of a sudden in the 1860s, in the early 1860s, after that 1860 census. Do you think that maybe he enlisted in the Civil War? Yeah, there's good evidence there is. You know, you also have to put your family in time context. Also, Cincinnati, they were down right across from Kentucky. Have you ever thought that maybe Mary and Michael got married in Kentucky? They didn't necessarily get married in Ohio. They may have jumped the river if they truly were in Cincinnati. So you see how this Cincinnati thing opens all these doors and possibilities.
And I can personally attest to
Go
that,
ahead.
actually,
Yeah, you can.
family, and have tracked him back and forth across the river multiple times. So he moves between Dayton, Ohio, Cincinnati, and Newport, Kentucky for almost 2 full decades, buying property in all different places. He actually lived in Dayton and Kentucky, but he did most of his business in Cincinnati. So looking at a map and getting perspective of the geography is super important. And I think, as Thomas said, putting them in social context in that timeline can be so helpful, because you see all the things in the world happening around them, but then you kind of go, well, wait a second, that the bridge was built to across the Ohio River right when he lived there, right? If memory serves well, right before or during the war, they built that bridge. And obviously, you know, they're not just using it for the army, right? Everybody's going back and forth. So that bridge to me was the clue to go, I need to look in Kentucky. And that's where I ended up finding him.
Exactly. And notice all of this stuff up to this point, Donna, was stuff that I culled from your everything here, but these are the new ones. There's an address here in 1903. And I believe that might have been on the marriage certificate. So I just want to check out the address. I'm always doing that. On that 1860 census, we have a Peter Keenan. So the thing is, sometimes in the notes, you notice I will also say where something is from, you know? So this is what your to-do list is all about. The other one that I've started is I started a surname variation tab, because look at what I came up with. Records listed as Keenan, Kennan, and Cannon. And also, did you realize that several records are indexed as MICHL for Michael? And he also seemed to use the name Mike later on, right?
As a matter of fact, that's what my dad always called him, Mike.
Right. So the thing is, I like setting up a name variation tab so that I don't have to go through this sieve that's my brain and say, okay, what was that? Now, if I was a good boy here, though, I would put in the source and I would start saying, where did I get Canaan from? Because as Jen and I have talked, you know, I tend to use all the platforms. I like Find My Past, but sometimes we do have to use the other platforms because they all index differently. I have verified that sometimes the images are better on one than the other, you know, so you have to do that. And then we get into the research log itself. So let me go through this, and I've used colors. Red means that we're not really sure here. So what I started with is I started with the 1880 census. Okay, you had now this supports the fact that he's 18 that he was born in 1857. Okay,
Mhm.
and so and we found it on Find My Past. We did an analysis of it. It doesn't really prove the birth year. I haven't done an analysis yet, but look at these notes. This is why. And also, you know what I love about this, Donna? Here's a link to the Find My Past document right there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
You can go right there. You know, you just embed it in there, and I'll show you right now how to do that, because I think Jen, that'd be a benefit to the audience to know how to do that.
Mhm.
So what I'm doing is I'm slowly cranking my way. There we go. Okay, so this is the 1880 census. So right here, if you notice, I've got something called a link for it. I'm going to unlink it. So what you do is this. The thing is, if I were to take this URL, copy it, and then paste it here, oh boy, does that look ugly, right? And it's not even wrapped. And if I wrap it, it looks even uglier, right? So this
That's
is the
what I
whole,
do.
yeah, this is the whole idea. No, this is the whole idea is what you do is you type a placeholder like the word link. You hit enter. Then you notice I'm going to go right on top of it here, right click, insert link, and I'm going to paste what I just copied,
Oh my gosh.
and Viola, there it is.
Oh my goodness.
So when you hover over it, I always have the link there. This saves you time, because you're not saying, okay, where did I find that 1880 census? Then look at this right here. Do you talk to your ancestors, Donna? Please tell me you do.
I have,
You talk to them while you research?
I do.
Good.
That's
Yeah.
where I feel the connection.
Yes.
Truly,
Yeah,
it's just,
you're not crazy. You're not crazy like me, because I do all the time. But notice here in the notes, this is where I do the talking. This is where, did you notice that on the 1880 census, he's listed as unable to write? Did you notice that on the 1880? Okay.
as a matter of fact, I did. And then
Yeah.
in latter censuses, he says he can write.
Right.
and
And the thing
read.
is also he can, the thing is on the 1880, but in the 1870s said he couldn't. So do we even have the same person? Notice that for 1880 and 1870, they both say they're 23 years old. Yeah, it's, so this is also, it's curious that he said ethnicity is American.
Yeah.
Now, when you were to ask an Irish person their ethnicity, maybe he thought the question was, are a US citizen, but he considers himself American, to the point where we've seen Irish people pick a birthday like July 4th because they didn't know their birthday, and that was really important. Could this mean that now we're talking 1880. So I think there was a theory that he came over about 1871, right, Donna? Roughly. Okay.
Right.
And so in between the censuses, I could not find any indication of naturalization in Ohio. There were no access. So again, maybe he did live several years somewhere else. Although we come down here to this one. Let me go to the 1860 census, and let me show you. This is the one that you haven't seen, right?
That's right.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and look at this. I'm trying not to have too many windows open here. And the other thing that I do, folks, and Jen knows this, I always save a local copy of the image right away. Okay. But look at this. Look at this. This is probably why you didn't find it. MICHL. So this goes into your search list of name variations. Okay. This could be how it was indexed. In fact, it wasn't just Find My Past that indexed it this way. Other places index it the same way. Okay. And notice who's here. Peter. It's most likely his older brother. We have a 13-year-old traveling. Maybe he just came in. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and look at the image here. And hopefully it won't take too long. Uh, there. It's not a great image. I would probably use a software to lighten it up or something. But you notice over here it says boarding house. You notice how I'm tilting my head? And right here is a tool that will let me go ahead and change that. I don't know why I'm doing that, but it says boarding house. That's important. But also, do you know how it says boarding house here? And so what does it mean here? Do you think that there might be more on the previous image? Yeah, we should go back to the other image is what we should do. That's a big mistake that a lot of people make. In the 1900 census, remember how Mary and Mike were down at the bottom of the page?
Mhm.
I would not have known that they had 2 female daughters living at home unless we went over to that page.
Yeah.
Okay. But if we go in here and we look a bit, we can probably see that there's Peter and he's listed as a Cooper. Okay. And Michael is listed as the same. DO means ditto. I had to learn that as well. There's a certain company out there that puts people's occupations as DO, literally, because that's how it's being read. It's not being read as a ditto, as a copy. So yeah, so that's interesting. We've got a career here. So it may be that it's not. Was he Cooper's apprentice? You said that Mike was in the railroad.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this is something that we have to look at. Okay. Also, the location was Cincinnati. All right. Then also, let's look at this. Now, I want you to know about the 1900s. I want you to remember this enumerator's name, Herman Kuschneider, because you will be cursing his name every time you use this document. This is just, it's awful. It's just, it's crazy. Yeah. And so the other thing is, and I did want to bring this up to Jen. Jen, in some platforms, this record comes up with the girls listed as well in the family, even though they're on the second page. That's really helpful. Okay, so just going to my improvement file. But the thing is, here, you would have no idea right now that they have 2 daughters, right? So it's always pays to view the image. What I also did is right away, I didn't do it before, but I download the image. Donna, let me ask you, how do you save your file names?
I save them by last name first. So I have a subfolder for each surname, and then first name, and then census 1900 or
Okay,
census
great.
1880.
Well, this is what I've done on this. This is the one for Peter Keenan from the 1860 census. And I'm very consistent if you look at how I'm naming, and you're going to get access to all these documents, my friend.
Oh, thank
And
you.
so, yeah. And so the thing is, here's the death certificate. And look at how I put at the end 19150505. I think I might have it wrong, or May 5th is when he died. So this reads May 5th, 1919. This reads the date being January 21st, 1862. Yes, there is a marriage in 1862 we had to rule out. So the thing is, I hope what I'm getting across, Donna, is we're taking a step back to get a better view of the information. Part of that is we're using mind maps, but we're also being consistent in how we name files, because the thing is, right now, I can hover over this name and I know what I'm opening. You see, I'm not
Yeah.
wasting time going back and forth. Okay.
That's
And
great.
so, right. And so that's really an important part of it. Notice this one right here. Oops, here we go. Hold on. Okay. We were going to look at this image. Look at how horrible this is. Look at this. All over here. Okay. And then it gets down here to your ancestor, Michael Keelan. Okay. And so it's got, and notice there's a 4 here. I think it's meaning that there was a household of 4 people, including the 2 on the next image. This is cut off down here. It says Foreman Railroad Depot, but right here it says 1872 and 28 years that he was in the country, I believe. What are the questions? Number of years in the United States, year of immigration. Okay. So it does, okay. Or 18, yep, make sure I got the right one. There it is. 1872, I think, and 1880 for Mary. Okay. So that could be accurate. And then we go to our next image. And there were, and even worse, I couldn't even figure out what number they were on University Street. It turns out it's 208. And there it is. And all of this information. The nice thing about the 1900 census is they did give us a birth year and a birth month. Okay, but still no birth date. Okay. And it says she's a waiter in a restaurant and all of this other stuff here. Okay, so that's the 1900.
Was a waitress, and that's how my great grandfather met her. He
Oh, okay.
he
So, you
was
know,
living in Cleveland, and he was actually an accountant for Griselli Chemical, and he would eat at this restaurant every day.
right. So I noticed my own error here. And so I thought originally that was a naturalization date. So I'm going to take this note out here because it turns out it's an arrival date. So what I want you to know also is a log is a living document to me, you know, and the nice thing is I usually have one research log per person. Okay, maybe per family group, but it's easier for me to keep track of this. Let's look at some other things. His birth year goes all over the place. We know this from the various censuses. There is, now this is a positive. This is one of the good green ones. This is the marriage certificate for the second marriage. Okay. Which, I mean, we proved the date, we proved everything. We proved that she was married before and it was O'Neill. So that's not her maiden name. And so we have access to that. Okay. Did you know that there is in the Archdiocese of Cincinnati, thanks to Find My Past records, that there was a marriage in 1869? Let's look at it because this is going to be interesting. Let me ask you, on Mamie, what was her middle name?
It was Mary Marguerite.
Okay, interesting.
That is my great grandmother. Her mother was Mary, and I don't know her middle name.
She often went by May as well. I had to look up, and I'll show you how to look up different nicknames. But I found this record. It's in Latin. It's from the church. And right down here, we see, where is it? Where's our Keenan? I have to go back out, sorry. Yay, Kelly. Oh, here it is, Michael Keenan. Just on the 25th day of April, in matrimony, Michael Keenan and Margueritum Morgan, Marguerite. So I find this curious that this happened in Cincinnati, and we have this boy, this guy, Michael Keenan, that was 13 in 1860. He would be almost, 20 years old at this point when he did that. I don't know where that came from. Anyway, okay, so this is one of those. And notice my notes here. If Michael Keenan was still in Cincinnati, they could have gotten married in Cincinnati. This could be their marriage record. But this would mean that he arrived earlier than 1872. But also we know that memories get fuzzy, right? So does this make sense, Donna? This is one of those areas. This is really an important document. The other thing,
very exciting because, my great grandmother, her name was Mary Marguerite. And I thought, what an odd name that is. And her mother was Mary as well.
yes. Well, I knew the Mastersons. I grew up with the Masterson girls. There were 7 girls. Everyone's first name was Mary. It was Mary Margaret, Mary Ann. But when they were announced to go to the principal office, which was all the time, they just say, Mary Masterson, please come to the office. So all 7 girls would have to go. But you're right. This is a strong clue, right? This is a strong clue for him being in Cincinnati before Cleveland. So maybe it is this 1860 guy. All right. The other thing is I was unable to find an 1875 marriage document. In the 1900 census, Mike says that they were married 25 years, which would have been 1875. I cannot find anything. And you said, and we know that Cleveland Archdiocese, the records are incredibly difficult to get a hold of. Okay. And so, Yeah. And now that you told me he's Roman Catholic, if he had been maybe Irish Church of Ireland, Presbyterian, or anything, maybe we would have had. But the thing is, there's no civil record, nor could I find a civil record for this 1869 marriage. Okay. Maybe they went over the river to get married, and then they did this at the church, right?
Mhm.
So yeah. There's also an 1862 marriage here, which I think we can pretty much rule out because Michael would have been 15. It doesn't mean, but the thing is, we don't know. We have his death certificate, which is it's another green one, you know, it gives us all of this information here. And just so people know also, do you know how the evidence evaluation works on the research log, Donna? I've got these
I'm not
four,
sure.
they've got these four fields
Oh.
here. The thing is, when I started out as a genealogist, I would treat every record as equal. That was it. I mean, I would just, it was in a book. It's got to be my Austin. It's got to be my Keenan or whatever. But we need to start looking at documents critically. So the thing is, if you ever want to know, there's a tab down here called evidence, and it tells you what is original, what's the difference between original and derivative for a source type, clarity, marginal. Okay, so that's always there as a reference for you. Okay, so coming back here is it's a derivative. Basically, it is information that was taken from, and you're working with a copy as well. You've never touched the original unless you have a certified one or a copy. It's clear. It's secondary information. Who was the informant? His second wife.
Informant was Elizabeth, and she has
Yeah.
been driving me crazy because she did their marriage registration and said that his father was Mike.
Right.
And then on this death certificate, she says his father is Cornelius.
Yes. Or Cornelius. Cornelius, if it's right here, Cornelius looks Dutch to me. But do you remember from the Celtic Connections Conference, one thing we learned is that certain given names can be predominant in certain areas of Ireland. So you
Yes.
might want to look up Cornelius, right? And see, because we know that there was chain migration. We know that families came together. This is also why those passenger lists, I looked at every possible passenger list. It's not in the research log yet, but I couldn't really see him traveling with anyone else. You know, if it is 1860 and he's noted with his brother, did his brother come first? Did a 13-year-old boy come on his own? I mean, a lot of questions popping up here. Okay. And so let's see. I didn't have any notes for that. Let me go through a few other things. And here we have Peter Keenan. So guess what I wound up doing on Peter Keenan? I said, okay, what if Peter and Michael really were in Cincinnati all this time? So the first thing I did is I looked and I found that there is a military record for Peter Keenan in the 160. Now, all I saw was the file card. This is going to be difficult because I don't know, Jen, if NARA's open, if it's open, but usually when I do this type of research, it's not online. I have to have someone like Bernice Bennett or one of my other friends, colleagues, do it for me as a paid record pull. This might be worthwhile because in here you could get information about his brother, his family, everything. Okay. This is why maybe I couldn't find Peter in a certain period in the city directories in Cincinnati, starting in that 1861 to 65. And then he comes back. So that tells me, that he might be Civil War. And I don't have, also notice it's using the surname Kennan. That was the first time we found this surname. Okay. So, there's also, here is a Peter Keenan married a Mary Kelly in 1891. Okay. And so this was the marriage date. So that's also something, we have to look at everything.
Mm-hmm.
And we come down here, we have other marriage certificates for Peter Keenan. This one is to a May Burnett. Okay. But the thing is, I did want to show you this city directory stuff. I must have pulled at least 20 or 30 city directory records thankfully, the Cincinnati Public Library has them available for free and online. Now, how did Thomas figure that out? He just searched on Google Cincinnati city directories. I have a link to every one here, okay? And here it is, 1867, and I say what he's listed as. Also, guess what I also did? I did some fan club stuff. I knew his address was 50 Elm in Cincinnati, so I wanted to see who else lived there in those time periods. Does he have a connection with these people? Okay. Thomas Hines was there, a Patrick McDonald. There's a Michael Kinney there's a Michael Keenan and a Michael Kinney, both in the 1870 directory living at 50 Elm. I just think it was a duplicate. Okay. And the first time we see Michael Keenan in a Cincinnati directory, we thought was 1863. It turns out it's not. We found him, I don't know as far back as what, but Peter Keenan, 1861. Peter Keenan, there's a Michael, 1864, working as a roofer. 65 as a roofer. 59. Now this could support, but would you have a 12-year-old laborer? That's the one thing I'm thinking. Yes, probably, you know. And notice all these other Keenans that are here in the 1859 city directory. There's our Cooper. There's a new Patrick and a Peter. They're all at this address. You have to also see, I didn't look at a map, is this address to Greenleaf anywhere near where the other Keenans are? So do you see, now you're talking about maps, like Jen said, okay? And it just keeps going and going, all right? Any questions so far? I don't know if I've just, if this is too much to take in, but.
No, this is a whole different avenue, because I certainly have not searched Cincinnati.
Now, I don't know how much you know about Cincinnati as a port of entry. Now, Jen, they would have come up through probably the New Orleans and over, or how would they have gotten to Cincinnati from Ireland?
New Orleans is definitely an option, but Pennsylvania, Philadelphia would be a very, very popular route as well, obviously.
They were. Go ahead.
Traditional migration patterns from New York and Pennsylvania down into Ohio, and then across to Michigan, et cetera, and Wisconsin. Like that's a very, very common route for migration.
Boston through Erie Canal to Buffalo, then the Great Lakes,
Yeah.
Also,
and by then, Ohio had 2 north-south canals.
Right.
And so there actually is a canal from Lake Erie down towards Cincinnati.
Right. So this is basically what I spend the time doing, is making sure I have links to things, etc. I did have to go out to Genealogy Bank to find. I didn't know if you knew that Mike, it looks like, was arrested for selling illegal liquor to minors. Oh, you did know this, so this is not a surprise. Okay. So the nice thing about this is it puts Michael at a specific date in a specific place.
In Solon.
Okay. And so this supports I believe it was the 1880 census that said they were in Solon. Okay. And so, and it's what I've done also is I always go and transcribe the article, which is here for you. Yeah. You want to know how I did it? You want to know how I did it? I use a Word voice dictation, and I just sat there and read it into my microphone so that it would go ahead and type it. Yeah, I do that all the time. Okay. And so, so that's a little bit of fun. But also then I started to do this. I said, okay, those daughters that were born, I have to say that your research is cursed by 2 things right now: the lack of the 1890 census, lack of a state census in Ohio. That would have saved us so much. And then guess what? Their first child was born July 4th, 1880, after the June 1st census date. So if it is truly them, it could very well be them on that 1880 census, and we're never going to see them, because by the time the 1900 census comes around, those kids are gone. Oh, except for 2 of them, right? The 2 older ones are gone. Okay, so all of that. Then I start getting into passenger lists. You know, there's a 7-year-old here that came over in 1853 through New York. Okay, that lines up with almost everything else. Because I also think, this is what my theory is, I couldn't find naturalization for him. So either he was never naturalized, or he did it in New York or Philadelphia or Boston, you know, where he arrived. So this really, Jen, do you think I'm on the right track? This supports the notion that you have more work to do on this side. Because if you were to hop to the pond right now with maybe 3 or 4 different possibilities, you're going to drive yourself crazy. It drove me crazy. So,
I
so
think
go
for the
ahead.
naturalization piece in particular, it's important to understand the naturalization process. There's several steps, and it took many years in most cases.
Yeah.
Natural. It was very common for them to file that a declaration of intent as soon as they got off the boat.
Right.
So all of the major port cities for that first step of naturalization. And then once they get settled and they prove their residency and years of duration in the country, that's when they start to file the rest of the paperwork. You're really looking for 3 sets of documents in that naturalization process. But all of those major port cities should be considered for that initial declaration. And that will give you, obviously, if you can find that, or you can find the passenger list, obviously one or the other complement each other, because then you can find, you know, the other one.
Right. The other, I want to show a few tabs here. You do know I do have some of the top citation formats here that you can just copy and paste, and you just fill them out. The other one here, this is new. I have a 240 line record checklist, and this is what I started doing. I knew that these would not apply. 1850, I just wanted to make sure, right? Just for shiggles, as my mother would say. Okay, so, but there were no records. I found the 1860, 1870, 1880. There's no 1890. I found 2 records on the 1900, and then the 1910. And then down here, I made sure he wasn't on the DDD for 1880. And I also made sure he wasn't on the 1890 veteran schedule. And I didn't find Peter there either. So Peter could have died, or maybe we have the, you know, I don't know. But notice here, I made a note, Ohio has no state census. And then you need to start going through these systematically. Not everything's going to apply. So on stuff like this, you could actually right click this and say you could hide the row, which is a nice way of doing it. Or the other thing that I tend to do is I will go up to the very top and I will do a data sort, and we will sort it. Oh, what column will we sort it by? By the start date, by column C. See? And that way it groups everything that way. That way I'm not hiding any rows. I notice I have hidden rows right here, I believe. It looks like I've got a gap. Nope. But anyway, this is why this is really useful. This keeps you on track. Also, if you were to put Michael Keenan down for a week and go on to Mary Keeley, you know, then you still have this and you know where to pick up. How are we doing time-wise? And why don't we try and wrap it up, Jen, sort of?
Yeah. Oh, we've got about 12 minutes left.
Okay, the one thing I do want to go also, I did set up something on Time Toast. There's a rudimentary timeline. Time Toast is a free program used by educators. And actually, you can actually upload photos, upload your source citation, and start to build a timeline of residents. This again is going to let you see, and I do this all the time. And here you could also do it as a list of items. Okay. The other thing is for Time Toast, you'll notice that I do them. Where are my timelines? There, come on, guys. Hold on. I'm trying to get around here. Sign in. Is I have them, see, I use them all the time. I'll put up my ancestors photo on one of them, etc. So I really think that a timeline is really going to help you. And this is the program that I use the most. I can print it to PDF. And let me tell you, all those nieces and nephews, they love timelines for school. So this way, you know, so that's all, Jen. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Actually, that was perfect, because I was going to segue into a piece of Donna's story that you haven't touched on yet.
Oh, okay, great.
Employee bit. You mentioned when you told us about your ancestor initially that in the 1880 census, he was employed by the railroad, and you told us the Wheeling Lake Erie Railroad specifically. I am always curious about that kind of stuff. That's where my attention was drawn almost immediately. The Wheeling and Lake Erie Railroad actually didn't start until 1871. So if he was employed by them in 1880, he was one of their very first employees because they'd only been in existence for 9 years. But their first decade as a company was tumultuous, to say it lightly. They had a rough go when they started. So they really didn't get into a successful period until after the 1880 census was taken, which means you have a couple of opportunities for further research from that perspective. In terms of his occupation, I would be definitely looking to see if I can find the early records from that company. And the reason I say that is because it was purchased and supported by a pretty major American railroad tycoon in its later years. And thus he would have wanted documentation. He is a strong businessman, and he would have wanted that paper trail. So somewhere there is probably an archive that has the early papers of this company. If he was one of a handful, I'm guessing, a handful of early employees, he will be in that documentation. It will at least tell you the circumstances around that company. The railroad is actually still in existence, so it would be possible to contact them directly and say, what can you tell me maybe about your early years? They may just refer you to a website, but it's best to just be thorough, right?
I also would search Google Books. I would search Google Books and everything else. This gets into fraternal organizations and work groups.
Mhm.
I mean, he could have been part of a union.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
There actually is, the Syracuse University has an archive that specializes in railroad records.
Right.
And right now they're not going actually into the office, but I have contacted them, and they promise when they get back to work, they're going to give me some information. So great suggestion.
Oh, that's good. It's always good to know the background, especially when a specific company is listed like this. There's so much opportunity there because maybe they moved as a course. Maybe we can't find them in an appropriate trail because he's on the train, right? If the railroad moved him from station to station, that may be a really strong indicator of where in the census or where you're going to find his naturalization papers or where you're going to find a birth or a marriage or any other vital event, right? So follow that, especially with something like a railroad, right?
Also, I do want to mention the Potter's Field issue. Keep an
Yeah.
eye on the timeline. We're talking the lead up to World War I. Look at the financial markets. 1903, there was a financial panic in the US where my second great grandfather went bankrupt with his butcher store. So look at that. 1903 is when they got married, but look at the subsequent. I mean, you're right. He went from a railroad worker to being buried in a pauper's field. Was there some family? You know that there's a probate record after he died,
Mhm.
and I'm just wondering if there was tension with the second wife and the daughters from the first marriage.
Could
and
be.
and she wanted to be buried with him, and the daughter said, well, have at it, and we're not supporting burial. So that's one of those things. Again, you were smart to think of that. How could someone go from a position of some position at a railroad to then being buried as a poor person? Yeah.
Thomas, do you want to go ahead and stop screen sharing so
Yeah,
they
I
can
will.
see our?
Yeah, sure.
So we've had a lot of people watching, and I want to acknowledge. I mean, there's just
Do
it's
they
so
think we're crazy? Do they think we're crazy or what?
crazy. They're not. I'm not seeing a lot of comments. I think people just listening really intently. So really, really interesting story. And Donna, thanks again for letting us kind of
Oh,
dive.
thank you.
So no solutions, Donna, but a lot of clues, not a lot of next steps, right?
Yeah.
For sure. So one of the questions we did get from Sue, she wanted to know if there's a blank research log available where you can get one from. And I think she's specifically asking about yours, Thomas. So if you want to.
Yeah, all you have to do is type genealogyresearchlog.com and you can download the Excel version. Now, the Excel version will upload into Numbers for you Mac users. Several of my Mac friends said it uploads perfectly. Also, you can upload it to Google Sheets. So it's a blank one. It has a copyright, but it basically, I just don't want you to sell it. So I don't care how often you use it, but it's free. You can download it, you can share it. And it's really helped me. I've used it professionally for years because on some court cases, I have to turn over my work product. I have to show my work. I can't just get up and testify and say, this is the way it is. You've got to show your work. And then, Donna, you have your work cut out with you with the DNA stuff too. Now, when you said you tested siblings, do you have any male siblings?
I have one.
Okay, good. So did you
And
do Y DNA or not?
I did, but
Yeah.
this is on my grandfather's mother's side. And so
Okay.
my brother is a direct descendant from the German Broad side. And
Okay. Okay.
so we
Broad.
did do
Yeah,
Y.
I saw Broad. I also saw that it was noted on the marriage certificate as him being Romanian, Mr. Broad. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, and that's Ron. I actually have that line back to the 1600s and Marken the Theld, Bavaria. I think
Okay,
that's
very good. But now you have a lot to do. You have a lot to work on. But can you see, I'm hoping you can see how standing back to see the whole forest is when you're in among those trees. And that whole idea of having a link on the research log so you can get that document right away. I mean, I would rather spend 30 minutes searching Michael Keenan than 30 minutes poking around looking for stuff. So.
Right.
So we
Yeah.
did do
Yeah,
Y.
I saw Broad. I also saw that it was these, and that whole idea of having a link on the research log so you can get that document right away. I mean, I would rather spend 30 minutes searching Michael Keenan than 30 minutes delay.
Yeah, something happened there.
Wow.
We did have a couple of comments about, it would take me 30 more years just to get my research this organized.
Oh, hey. No, you know what it is? It's slow. It's slow at first. I want to tell everyone it can be exceedingly slow, but you build good work habits, even down to everyone was wondering, how did Thomas get a line break in that cell in Excel? It's Alt and the Enter key, Alt Enter. It's one of those undocumented things. So, but no, if you really commit yourself to a disciplined way of researching, it pays off in the end. It's an investment.
Yep, absolutely it does. I've actually spent a great deal of my lockdown time organizing my files. I was using a file cabinet system and it just kind of blew up, right? 30 years of research will do that to you. So I've now got all the paper stuff organized. I'm working on the digital stuff next and the photographs and the oversized materials, but it helps tremendously to just put in that investment. Couple of comments, people just saying they're being very quiet because it's so intense. They want to pay attention, which is great. And a lot of just real, compliments and thanks to both of you. Thank you for sharing your story, Donna, and thank you for sharing what you found, Thomas, and again, taking that step back. We did share on the link in the chat, we did share the link to Thomas's research log. And already someone's asked for you to come back and just walk through the research log itself.
Yeah,
so
we can do that. Yeah, we can do that. The other thing is I'd be interested in spinning off into another brick wall buster just on city directories.
Yeah.
And mapping, because I didn't set up a Google map. My other step would be to set up a Google map with pinpoints of all those Cincinnati addresses to see where they were.
And I do a lot of mind mapping and visualization as well. I think I'm a very visual person. I use Lucidchart, which has a free version for some of that. But, I picked it actually from one of Blaine Bettinger's DNA sessions where he was talking about tracking the DNA on a chart and actually putting it in a picture. But then I took that and I went, well, I don't really have a lot of DNA on this case. And I started tracking the estate instead.
Yeah.
So I figured who got most, and this is actually my Cincinnati, Kentucky guy. He was wealthy. He did well from a business perspective. So his two children that were surviving when he died, only one inherited the vast majority of his estate. And she was a spinster. She never married. She never had any kids.
Wow.
Where did all those things end up? Who got the house? Who got all the stuff? Right. So I've been trying to track, and I've actually been able to get down to living descendants and connect with various second, third, fourth cousins that I've never known before by tracking on Lucidchart. Where did the money go? Right. Follow the money, as they say in the movie. Right. And that has helped a lot. So I think any tool that we can find to help visualize the research is always going to be a good tool, right? Always, always.
I agree.
All right, so a couple of questions. There's a lot of thanks for the ideas. Karen wanted to know, there will be a replay. Karen, you can watch it on the Find My Past Facebook page anytime you want. It was recorded and it will live on there as well. On the Find My Past page, it'll eventually go to our YouTube channel as well. And I think just a whole lot more of thank yous, and this was really insightful and helpful. So we are technically at the top of the hour. Donna, any last comments or observations or reactions you want to share? This was quite an for you.
Just want to say thank you so much. You've given me, Thomas, some other ideas, which is really, really terrific. And I have put a lot of time and effort into my research. And
and it showed. Believe me, this was a great foundation. But you've always got to go back and check someone's work. And verify it. It wasn't clear to me from your synopsis what was documented and what was family story. So very often in my to-do list, I will put that on that tab. In the to-do list, I will map out family stories and then try and prove them through document research.
But thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. You're very welcome. And I hope, Donna, that as you progress through your research with all these new ideas, you will come back and share again with us what you found. So stay in touch. Let us know how you get on so that we can have you back so you can tell us that you've solved the mystery of Michael Keenan.
Yeah, well, it'd actually be great that we can all hop over the pond together. So if you can actually identify your person here, then we can go over and use the Irish records at Find My Past. So,
Wonderful. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you both so very much. And Audrey, one last comment from Audrey, of course. She said, it was a great session. I was pleased to see you had your hairs did for the occasion.
I haven't. The problem is I've been bleaching with peroxide because I haven't had time to go to Mr. Pinky and have it done. So, but I need to work on a September color, so soon.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't know what we're talking about with Thomas's hair, just follow him on Facebook and you'll get the hair updates that you need.
Usually a different color every month. So yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both again.
Thank you.
For those of you watching on the Facebook page, this next week we're celebrating all things Wales. So join Ellie on Friday for Find My Past Live with new records every week. And then next week, Ellie and Miko will be on together discussing Wales and Welsh research and all things Wales. So that's going to be really exciting. So join us on the Find My Past Facebook page for that as the week continues. Thank you all very much. Have a great day. Stay safe.
Bye, Jen.
Take care.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.